You probably picture, well, elegance, right? Grace, maybe an air of untouchable mystery. But today, we are totally stripping away those westernized myths. We're ditching the romanticized Hollywood filters to reveal the absolutely grueling, relentless reality of what it actually took to become one of these legendary artists.
To really get this, we've got to start at the very beginning. I mean, what does it actually cost to become a living piece of art? Imagine for a second you're just 7 years old, living in 18th century Kyoto. Some strange woman comes to your house and literally inspects you like a prize melon at a market. She's checking your face, your hands, your ears. Money changes hands, and just like that, you are sold into a life where an insurmountable, lifelong financial debt begins on day one. You haven't even unpacked your things and you already owe them everything.
Now, the very first lesson you learn as a child servant in your new home is actually a strict geographic one. See, in Kyoto, these highly trained professionals are called geiko. Tokyo is where they use the term geisha. And if you accidentally use the Tokyo word in Kyoto, oh boy, the house mother will absolutely make sure you're scrubbing floors for the rest of eternity. So geography lesson complete!
So let's look at how this grueling journey builds across those early years. Starting right at age 7, you enter the okiya, the lodging house, as a servant. They call this a shikomi. During those first few months, you might get smacked like 17 times with a fan just for existing too loudly or breathing wrong. But if you show some promise, say you set a teacup down perfectly without spilling a drop, you just might be chosen at age 13 for formal Maiko training. And that's all leading up to your official debut at 15.
Getting from point A to point B, though, it is completely brutal. Seriously, evolution has nothing on geisha training. While other kids are out playing, you are spending your afternoons literally dodging bamboo sticks from an 80-year-old music teacher who somehow has the aim of an Olympic archer. You're practicing walk-in with cups of water balanced on your head. You're plucking the shamisen until your fingertips actually bleed. And you're bending your back into this permanent bow just to survive the intense scrutiny of your house mother.
And your dinner etiquette lessons? Total exercise in sheer absurdity. You don't just pour a drink like a normal person. No, you have to memorize 37 different, highly specific ways to pour sake. You need to know 23 ways to compliment a businessman's success without knowing a single thing about his actual business. And honestly, the most terrifying part? You have to navigate this insane social minefield of 300 completely forbidden conversation topics. It's wild.
So, by age 15, assuming you've somehow survived all that training, you finally reach your misadashi. That's your official debut. But first, you're inspected by the senior geiko like a racehorse. Then the physical transformation begins. They slather on a white makeup base that feels exactly like wet cement on your face. A hairdresser pulls your real hair into this giant typhoon-proof structure using hundreds of pins, including this one incredibly vicious hairpin that you'll probably affectionately name Stabby McStabberson. Finally, you're strapped into a massively heavy kimono and 6-inch wooden sandals. Boom. You are officially a national treasure, and, in a whole lot of pain.
Now, on your very first night out, your mentor, who acts as your older sister in the profession, whispers this really guiding philosophy to you. She says, you're not selling your body, you're selling access to a fantasy, the fantasy that beauty and art still matter in this world. She teaches you right off the bat that redirection is hands down your absolute best defense against wealthy, overeager patrons. You are basically establishing ironclad psychological boundaries from day one.
Which means emotional detachment isn't just, a personal preference here, it's a strict financial necessity. Your mentor warns you that admiration is currency, but attachment is debt. In an industry where your entire livelihood completely relies on patrons paying for your time and this grand illusion, letting your actual heart get involved is just a terrible business move. To survive, you've got to keep your feelings entirely out of the ledger.
Okay, let's fast forward a bit. By your artistic prime, your whole world shifts. At age 17, you perform your first absolutely terrifying solo dance at a major festival. The shamisen is playing and your body is telling a story so captivating that a famous poet actually approaches you afterward and admits he forgot you were even human. And right at that exact moment, the shift happens. You've officially stopped learning the art. You have become the art itself.
But, and this is a huge but, behind the scenes of all this beautiful art, you're living a brutal double life. The public you, a floating vision of grace who never tires, never sweats, and apparently never even needs a bathroom break. But the private you are collapsing on a threadbare futon at 3 a.m. so absolutely exhausted that you don't even have the energy to yank those stabbing hairpins out of your scalp. Honestly, sleep is practically optional at this point.
So how exactly do you survive the endless stream of sake poured by these eager clients night after night? Well, you perfect the ancient art of the perpetually drunk ficus plant. It's true. You learn this sneaky trick of barely letting the cup touch your lips and then discreetly dumping your drinks into a corner plant when nobody's looking. I mean, by midnight, you'd swear that ficus is ready to start singing karaoke.
Yet hanging over every single forced smile, and every dumped cup of sake for that matter, is the Okia's incredibly heavy ledger. Every silk sock, every single hair ornament, every shamisen lesson, plus your room and board, all of it gets added to your tab. You are building a debt so incredibly massive that it basically resembles a small country's national treasury. And asking the house mother when you'll be debt-free, yeah, that just makes her laugh right in your face.
But hey, hope does eventually arrive. The very first tangible proof that you might actually own your life one day comes completely unexpectedly. A famous actor visits from the capital, and he tips so generously that even the stern house mother widens her eyes. A week later, you are gifted an exquisite hair ornament made of real tortoiseshell and gold. And the craziest part? It's not a loan from the house. It's yours. It is your very first actual personal possession.
And this all leads right up to your erkai, your big transition to becoming a full geiko. Your red collar turns to white, your hair gets way less elaborate, and your whole style just becomes much subtler. It's very much a you wish you could be me vibe. But this visual glow-up, it's also a massive financial reality check. You start taking home a much bigger cut, and you actually begin negotiating your own schedule. You're no longer just an artist, you have basically become a business wrapped in silk.
Now that you're essentially the CEO of yourself, you quickly learn that wielding silence is easily your greatest weapon. You don't need to give hour-long speeches. With the right, high-paying patrons, a raised eyebrow, a thoughtful little pause, or just a slight tilt of the head carries immense power. These tiny, calculated gestures let you assert control and effortlessly weed out those annoying, drunk merchants without ever breaking your perfect composure.
Then, finally, a monumental solitary number arrives, 28. At exactly 28 years old, after literally 2 decades of intense labor and terrifying compound interest, your staggering debt finally hits zero. Can you imagine? The house mother sits you down, pours you a small cup of sake, and physically hands over your fully cleared account book.
This moment, this represents the ultimate financial shift in your life. Think about it. From age 7 all the way to 27, you were working just to pay off the past, an indentured debt you never even asked for. But from age 28 onward, you are working to fund your own autonomous future. You're no longer paying off this unexpected life sentence. You are finally, consciously choosing this path for yourself. It's a game changer.
However, turning 30 hits a little bit differently in geisha years. Sure, your financial ledger is crystal clear now, but your body? Yeah, it's been keeping its own ledger of debts, and it is definitely starting to collect. You've got cracking knees, a back that constantly complains from years of holding perfect posture, and you suddenly find yourself completely inventing special appointments just to escape gatherings early so you can go faceplant onto your futon.
Moving into your later years, let's call it your businesswoman era, things shift again. By age 30, instead of just retiring to marry a wealthy patron like a lot of others do, you use your hard-earned savings to open your own exclusive private tea house. You set the rules. You pick the clients. You actually join this incredibly rare historical tradition of pioneering female entrepreneurs in Japan who owned property and ran their own businesses during a time when that was virtually unheard of.
And by 40, your ultimate legacy is pretty much cemented. You get approached by a famous artist for a massive temple commission. And when you finally see the finished painting, you realize you are immortalized right alongside ancient poetry, sumo wrestlers, and imperial court traditions. At this point, you're no longer just practicing a tradition, you have literally become a permanent piece of Japan's historical canon.
Which brings us to our final question. Today, as modern tourists snap photos of Geico like they're some sort of endangered species, calling it a dying art, you sit in your tea house tracing the laugh lines beneath your makeup, and you think back to that terrified 7-year-old girl. So, was this grueling life just making you a relic of the past? Or was every cracked knee, every drop of blood, and every perfect bow absolutely worth it to become a living bridge across time? I'll leave you to think about that one. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.